Principles for an excellent marriage. Genesis 2 verse 20b. But for Adam no suitable helper was found. Let us look at this text and draw out some pillars that we can use to build an excellent marriage. Of course, many people speak about that this woman was created, that was given the name Eve, or a woman, was not the first wife of Adam. They say there is another woman in Genesis 1, and they try to say her name was Lilith, the mother of demons. But let us focus on what is written. So, look at the principles highlighted in this text that if they are observed, we most likely will have a strong, indomitable marriage. If you look there, says, so the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. Key number one is falling into a deep sleep. Falling into a deep sleep. That speaks of what? Fall into a deep sleep. That speaks of dying to self. Dying to self. A man, you cannot build a strong marriage if you have not died to self. You must fall into a deep sleep, because marriages are built when you are sleeping. So you must die. That is dying to your egos, dying to your chauvinism, dying to your mediocrity, dying to your traditional and cultural principles, because marriages are built by men who are sleeping, not by them who are awake. Adam slept. Actually, it's God who gave him a deep sleep. That is key number one, which mostly we do not observe. Number two, and that is how you notice, after even these people fell through the corruption of the woman with the serpent, that marriage did not break. The husband and the wife went together to suffer together for another 900 years, but the marriage remained firm. Number two, and let's look there. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and crossed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The next thing that is very important for a strong marriage is the rib. The rib technology. The rib. Are you together? So what does the rib mean? Is it this rib here? Or what does that mean? What does that mean? That the Lord took a rib, one of the man's rib, and built a woman for him using that rib. Well, sacrifice. Okay? Sacrifice. And you go and do your own analysis. That is why we pay dowry. That is why we are doing wedding. You come to the altar with an envelope containing something. A marriage that does not have a rib, that marriage is built on water. Is built on the sand, and sooner than later it will break down. I've been speaking to so many people about their marriages, and one question I asked them: by the time you were breaking, had the dowry been paid? And they will tell you no. There is that requirement of the rib. That rib is deeper. There is a language I do not to use here, but you understand where that rib was taken from. It's not from here. Although if you count your ribs, there is one side that has more ribs than the other, especially the left side. So the next thing is then verse 23. The man said when he woke up, "This is now bones of my bones, and this is the flesh of my flesh. She will be called a woman, for she was taken out of the man." For a successful marriage, you must marry a woman who has been taken out of you. So the wife is supposed to be a replica, a direct replica of the man. That's why you hear many people saying we are not compatible. You hear that word of incompatibility. It comes from here. So for you to have a very successful marriage, you need to make sure that the marriage is made on bones. Bone of my bones. What does that mean? And then must make sure that the marriage is built on flesh of my flesh. That the principle. Flesh of my flesh principle and bone of my bones principle. It is deeper than what we think. So fresh. What does that mean? Yes, and then bones of my bones. Remember, bones speaks about your inner man. Speaks about your inner man, and flesh speaks about your outer man. They must rhyme. The outer man must rhyme with the woman, and the inner man must rhyme with the man. That's why we speak of. That's why you hear Paul speaking of offer your body as a living sacrifice, and be transformed in the renewal of your mind. So the next thing he says is that for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. The next thing that you require for a marriage to be very strong, make sure you have left your mother. What does that mean? Leaving your mother. And then make sure you have left your father. What does it mean to leave your father? Remember, your father is your DNA, the masculine energy, and your mother is your umbilical cord, the feminine energy. He is saying, for this marriage to work, you must leave your father and you must leave your mother. And that is what Ruth did. Boaz told her, I was told how you left your father and your mother. What does that mean? You must leave your carnality and you must leave your sinful nature. Carnality, the mind, and that is your mother, and the sinful nature, your body. So you must make sure you have offered your body as a living sacrifice, and you are transformed in the renewal of your mind. The father and mother energies must die in you, lest you find yourself in the marriage with the energy of your father or your mother. There is already I was struggling praying for her marriage. And every time I would speak with her, she would always say, my husband is not like my father. Is not like my father. I told her, you are not married to your father, you're married to your husband. As long as you are measuring your husband through the lenses of your father, your marriage will always be in conflict. Because you're trying to force your husband to be your father, and your husband is standing his ground to be a husband. So you have in your house, you have two men. Your father in your mind, and your husband in the body. And that one is a legal ground for incubus spirits. And I ask her, do you struggle with the spiritual husband? She told me, yes. There is a man who comes to defile me sexually in the dream. And I thought that is a problem. Because your husband is trying to force himself to be a man, and you are trying to force your father in your husband. So you're trying to see, and the devil takes advantage of that, and the devil manipulates your mind. The next thing is you must make sure you are one flesh. You must make sure you are of one flesh. Yeah? That's what we said, flesh of my flesh. Make sure you have been able to become one flesh. Meaning what? A binding covenant. One flesh means a binding covenant. The next thing is nakedness. The Bible says, last verse, the man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. If you want your marriage to be established, you must walk between the spouses. You must be naked to each other. Transparency. Any marriage that the spouses are not naked, one has a coat and the other one is naked, or both have a coat on each other, you cannot be compatible. You must walk both yourself as naked wires. Transparency. That's also why, as long as in the marriage there is someone who is keeping a secret, you will notice that marriage there is a point you don't agree because of that legal ground, and eventually it comes to be discovered later, and the result is divorce happens. So make sure you leave your mother, you leave your father, you become fresh of each other's flesh and the bone of each other's bones. Then you become naked, transparency. Then make sure you fall into a deep sleep, dying to serve, and make sure you are the lib of each.